So the first part of Bola's question was whether it is free for children to school here. Hello, my lovely friends. How are you? Welcome once again to my channel. For those of you who are new on here, my name is Chioma. I hope you're having a great weekend wherever you are. It's Sunday here, Sunday evening actually, which means the weekend is almost over, but all well and good. Anyway, so in today's video, I wanted to come on here really quickly. I am hoping for this to be a really short video, but it's something that I have always wanted to address. So this is actually a comment from one of you, my lovely viewers. Thank you so much for all of your support. This is actually from Bola, and so she sent me a question which I am going to read out and address. Soon as I saw Bola's question, one thing that came to mind was, yes, girl, you're asking the right questions, your head is in the right place. Bola dropped a comment. Actually, she dropped a series of questions under the video I made where I shared with you some of the wonderful news that was announced, I think 2 weeks back, regarding student visa holders and also people on the 485 visa. So please, if you haven't already watched that video and you're intending to study here in Australia, I would highly encourage you to watch that video. There's a link in the description box. So Bola dropped a comment under that video and she said she would like me to do a video on how students can make it through with dependent children who are school aged. She wanted to know whether it is free for children to study here and how can one work and meet up with these. If it is not free, how much should one be looking at? Please do a full video on how to survive with children while on a student visa. Thank you so much, Bola, for that question. So there's not a lot of videos I have seen where people actually address what happens when you bring dependent children along with you as an international student. So let's address this. So the first part of Bola's question was whether it is free for children to school here. Now the short answer is no, but please don't click out of the video yet, okay? That is the short answer. Now let me give you the long answer. Generally speaking, student visa holders who come in with dependent children of school age would also have to pay international fees for their kids. Okay, so that's the general rule, but then a few exemptions apply, and so those exemptions are what I want to talk about. Now these exemptions would depend on the state. In the state that I live in, which is New South Wales, unfortunately, I am not aware of any exemptions that apply to any class of international students. Doesn't matter what qualification you're studying towards, no exemptions apply, which means if you come into New South Wales to study with school-aged dependent children, you would have to pay fees for those kids in public school. Okay, but some other states which I want to mention would be Queensland, that is where Brisbane is located, WA, which is where Perth is located, and Tasmania, and also ACT. So ACT is the Australian Capital Territory, which is where Canberra is located. Now for these four states and for these three states and one territory, I am aware that exemptions may apply depending on whether you as the student visa holder is coming in to study towards a research-based degree or not. So if you're coming in to study a research-based postgraduate program, which would mean at the very least a master's by research or a doctoral program, okay, then it means exemptions would apply to your school-aged dependent children. So those exemptions apply to the extent that they would not have to pay fees for enrollment into public school. The only other state, among this batch of states that I have mentioned that is worth making a special note of is WA, which is Western Australia. So in Western Australia, they have expanded that policy a little bit to include people coming in to study a normal master's program. So by normal master's, I mean a master's by coursework. Obviously, there's a process, to determine your eligibility for that fee waiver. And so in that regard, I have put a link in the description, which I think is super important. If you're after that kind of information, please follow that link because it will connect you to all the different states and territories here in Australia in terms of the policies that apply to you and your school-aged dependent children. Moving on to the other parts of Bola's question, she said, if it's not free, how much should one be looking at? Okay, so I went digging and I found that here in New South Wales, which is the state that I live in and the state that my kids attend school, at the moment, the school fees per child per year is $6,600. and that applies to people on a student visa 500. That's the subclass of the student visa, who are studying at a TAFE institution or higher education or postgraduate, whether it's master's or doctorate. All right. And that fee applies from primary all the way to junior high school level. So from kindy up onto year 10. Okay. Years 11 and year 12 will pay 7,600. Every state is different, so maybe check for the state that you're interested in going to find out how much you will be paying for your school-aged dependent children. So the next part of your question was whether, how one can work and meet up with these, in particular regard to the dropping of restrictions on work hours for student visa holders. I think that's a great thing because it opens up the potential for earning more because you will be working full time. And remember, if you come in here with your spouse, then it means that they too can also work full time, regardless of what qualification you're studying towards. So it used to be before this announcement that if you were coming in to study towards a bachelor program, then neither you nor your dependent ones, your spouse or your partner, neither of you could work full time. It meant that even your partner was restricted to the 20 hours per week or 40 hours per fortnight work restriction. But now all of those restrictions do not apply anymore, which means regardless of what qualification you're studying towards, you can work full time, your partner can also work full time. So newly arrived people would usually have finances as one of their main stressors here, okay? Especially if you're coming in as a family, it can be difficult. I'm going to be honest with you, but the potential of earning more, I want to believe, would make a bit of a change, okay? And also, in the case where you have school-aged dependent children, I kind of think that it offers a trade-off there in the sense that your kids will be in school, which gives you some flexibility to be able to work in the time that your kids are also in school. That flexibility is not available to parents whose kids are not yet of school age. Because if your kids are not yet of school age, then you would have to be thinking about daycare. You would have to be thinking about how one of you, either yourself or your spouse, would have to stay home and look after them so that the other person can work. It's something that I have seen a lot of newly arrived people on temporary visas in particular have to contend with. So in the case where your kids are of school age and they're attending school, I think it also offers more flexibility. That brings me to another point. I feel most of the things you would need to do to cope would center mostly around your financial situation, if you get what I mean. Everything comes down to money, right? If you are buoyant enough, you would find that things would be a little easy. But again, I am not here assuming that people are coming in with truckloads of money. I want you to pay close attention to your finances in your planning. I already made a video about the importance of doing your research and your planning, proper research and proper planning, even before you step foot out of your home country. You want to make sure that you're getting it right from the beginning, because if you don't have clarity around your goals, it would be really difficult and you would find things to become even more frustrating. So please, you don't want that to happen. So when I talk about your financial situation, I want you to have a budget, okay? I want you to have a realistic budget. And if you would like some information around what your living expenses might be, just to have a bit of an idea, the kind of things that you will be spending money on, like basic living cost. I did a video quite early on, I think it was one of my very first videos when I started the channel, where I gave a breakdown of living expenses for us as a family of 4. I'm going to leave a link in the description so that you can check it out, and it would give you a fair idea. Like I said, it comes down to your planning. It will come down to your priorities, the things that are important to you and your family, and all of that would have to come down to the finances you have to support those goals for your family. So if you're able to figure that out even before you leave, a lot of the other things should be easy. When you come in here and you start getting familiar with the environment, you would also find other avenues through which you can, save some money or cut costs. And I also know that some people make that decision to come in first. The primary student visa holder might want to come in first and then have the rest of the family join them later, because that way it would reduce some of the financial pressure as well. So I am not saying that this is right for you or wrong for you. I am just putting it out there as another strategy that people employ to kind of cope, so that by the time your family is joining you, you're maybe right at the tail end of your studies, and so the financial pressure would be much less. But obviously think about what works best for your family. At the end of everything, just to summarize this whole thing, I want you to also keep your focus on your long-term goals. The first few years would be a little tough. It is natural for everyone, for most people. I wish you all the best in your plans. I hope this was useful. Meanwhile, before you go, please do not forget to subscribe and like this video, because it helps YouTube to push it out some more to people who also need to see this sorts of information, and it helps me to grow on here as well. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again in my next video. Bye bye.